Welcome back to another show of the Midwest Outdoor Experience Podcast, episode
Hello, hello.
14. I'm Nathan. He's Austin. We're going to get into this thing. Austin, how you been? What you been up to?
Oh, I am good. I have been very busy. Let me swap my screen over here. I've been busy working. I was on South Carolina doing some storm for the big ice storm they had, and I was gone for 9 days or something like that. So, and then getting caught up at home. So I haven't been able to fish as much as I would like to here in the last couple weeks, but thinking maybe this weekend that'll change a little bit into next week when it's super nice weather. I'm going to try and get out there. And
Heard that. Yep. I was kind of in the same boat. I was hoping to go last weekend, fell a little under the weather, just didn't feel up to it, so I didn't go. So now it's kind of on my schedule to go this weekend. We'll see how things go. But just been busy working and doing projects around the house. But tonight we got a fun guest. It's going to be great conversation. But before I go any further on that, I want to remind everybody that our next tournament of the Midwest Outdoor Experience Winter Series is coming up on February 21st out at Kaufman Beach. 7:30 to 3:30 are the tournament hours. You can pre-register now at our website. You still pay at the boat ramp the morning of, but you can pre-register now and save your boat spot, and that can be a huge thing. We got 2 tournaments left. It doesn't matter if you fish 1, 2, 3, or none with us yet so far. Anybody can come out. There's no membership fees. It's been a lot of fun. And as of right now, knock on wood, the weather is looking pretty decent. So hopefully you guys might want to come out and join us. But anyway, so without further ado, I do got to say one thing. We are going to have an extra prize this tournament for a big crappie prize. Thanks to Dave at the Sportsman's Lodge. He's the owner. And he called me and reached out and said, hey, I'd like to put $100 towards a big crappie prize. So all fishermen who are fishing the February 21st tournament, if you catch a crappie, throw it in your live well and bring it to the scales, and big crappie is going to win an extra $100. So super awesome. Cool. Thanks, Dave, for doing that. We're excited. Austin and I are known to only catch the weird prizes like Big Spot 2 tournaments in a row. Good job, Austin.
We'll have both next tournament. I also do want to mention to all our anglers that I've got us signed up for Phoenix, the first flight rewards for the tier 2. So if you fish out of a Phoenix, you can win extra money. And I've been working on every other brand you can think of. Skeeter, I think has got us signed up here. I've been trying to get a hold of all the other companies and get people to call me back. It's a little tough, but I've still been working on it, trying to get it. So hopefully by this next tournament, we should have any brand that you fish, extra incentive money. Our trail will be signed up for it. So that way they can earn some more cash for having a new boat.
Super cool. We're growing. I guess that means we got to get a new boat, Austin.
Yeah, I guess so.
We'll make it happen. But anyway, so let's get into this fun conversation. Tonight we are talking with Jeff Finley with the Missouri Department of Conservation, and he is the one and only man over Lake of the Ozarks.
Yes. Let's bring him in here. There he is.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hey, Austin, Nathan, I want to thank you guys right up front for what you do to promote the sport of fishing. As we know that it's a wonderful activity that we can all participate in. And by you guys hosting these tournaments and encouraging people to get out there and use this wonderful resource that we have, it's just spectacular. So I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. And Dave over at Sportsman Lodge, I want to thank him too for providing that little prize. We actually helped them. It was the first weekend in December, build a whole bunch of crappie beds with the Lake Ozark Crappie Club over there building stuff. They had the kids from Kalo come out and help us out. It was a great time.
That's
and
awesome.
Of course, fried up some delicious crappie as well. So anyway, thank you guys for letting me have a chance to come on and talk a little bit about how we manage the fisheries at the Lake of the Ozarks.
Absolutely. I'm excited for this. And Dave is a stand-up guy. He's
awesome. Yes. Yeah, shout out to Dave. He did our barbecue at the end of the tournament series last year. And when I talked to him, he sounded interested again. So we're looking forward to that. That one will be in March. So, but yes, good all around. But so we're excited to get the conversation. So to get people to kind of know a little bit more about you, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what got you started in the industry.
Well, so we can go way back to, I'm originally from New Mexico. I was born and raised there, and I joined the Army. I met my wife. She's from Pulaski County. And when I come back from Desert Storm, I decided we'd get married and settle down. And it was my father-in-law at that time that suggested I go into a career of conservation because I do a little bit of artwork and I was going to be a commercial artist. And he was like, I'd rather my daughter didn't marry a starving artist. And he suggested a career in conservation. And so I reached out to the Department of Conservation and talked to a few fish biologists and thought that would be a lot of fun. So I went to school at Mizzou, got my degree in fisheries biology. I did go to work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for a time, and I worked with them under a term position working on the Missouri River. And then I took an opportunity to work for the Missouri Department of Conservation. I worked with them for almost 5 years. You guys probably don't remember it, but the Department of Conservation at that time had a 40-foot long mobile aquarium that traveled around the states to different sport shows and events and stuff like that. And I managed that program. It was a lot of fun, but it was kind of hard on the family. So I had an opportunity to go back to work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I went back to them and I finished my career with them retiring in December of 2020. So most of my work was done on the Missouri River and some other rivers as well, Missouri and Osage River. And I still had gas in the tank. So when the job opened up at the Lake of the Ozarks, I was like, I got to have that. So
Awesome.
my wife and I have a condo down there. So it was a great fit for me to just jump on board and use my, 30 years of experience to help to manage the Lake of the Ozarks. And the previous manager too, well, there's two of them, Greg Stoner, people probably knew him for years, excellent guy. Known him for years. He's still a good friend to this day. And then Sam Clary, she took over for a brief period of time after Greg had retired. And then she moved on to a different position within the department. And that's when I took over. So I've been in the position since March of last year. So coming up on my first anniversary back with the Department of Conservation.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, thanks.
That's a huge undertaking.
Yes, absolutely. There is a ton of paths which we can go, but I got a couple more questions just to kind of feel you out and get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
First, what is the favorite part about your job?
Oh, the field work, hands down. I love doing the field work. So we're monitoring a variety of different fish populations. Some of those populations are managed by regulation, or they're managed by, us adjusting limits or adjusting lengths and things along those lines. These are fish that will reproduce naturally in the lake. The other portion of fish that we manage in the lake are those that don't reproduce in the lake, whether it's because dams have been installed or it's mostly dams. It's mostly once Truman Dam went in place, we had lost a lot of natural reproduction on some of our sport fish. And then some of them we throw in the mix just for fun or to maybe help to control populations of like gizzard shad to keep those from becoming overly abundant. So like hybrids and stripers, those would be a fish that we would produce and put in the lake to help manage those to keep a balance of what's going on. So the field work is great. Whether it's shocking or netting, I just love being on the water to be able to get paid to drive a 24-foot sea arc around the lake and either, shock at night or net during the day or even jug line, things like that. It's a lot of fun.
Super cool. Go ahead, Austin.
Oh, I was going to have him kind of go through seasons. So if you have any other feeler you can ask him.
Okay, then one more like the little feeler of obviously big into fishing. What's your favorite fish to fish for like the Ozarks?
Probably my favorite in Lake of the Ozarks, it has to be walleye. I mean, just because the table fare. I mean, nothing beats a walleye. So I really, really love fishing for walleye on the lake. But my favorite fish of all time is the king of the jungle, and that's the flathead catfish. Love bank poling on the Missouri River for flathead catfish. There's quite a few of them in the lake itself. They can be found. There's a lot of people in the spring, say May, they're fishing lake points with a medium diving crankbait, particularly if it's a bluegill color. You might pick up a pretty healthy sized flathead from time to time. So so those would be my two favorites. So flathead and walleye.
Interesting. I got some questions about a couple of different things in there. So Austin, if you don't care, I'm going to kind of dive it that way first and we'll just see where it goes.
Okay, that's fine.
What do you think of the walleye population in Lake of the Ozarks? Is it seem high, low, kind of just a little more rare to catch? What's your opinion?
I would like to see it a little bit higher. So we have so again, this is one of the species that we manage through mitigation stocking because there's not a lot of natural spawning going on. So historically, there's been some spawning in the Grand Glaze arm. So up along Swinging Bridge and some of those riffles, you get some natural reproduction there. There's a little bit of natural reproduction will occur on the Niagara arm up to Tunnel Dam. But Tunnel Dam has kind of thwarted some of that. And the rest of the population, the majority of the population goes and congregates below Harry S. Truman Dam. And that's going to be in February, March timeframe. A lot of anglers can go there and catch walleye in the spring. That's where we go to collect the broodstock. So we'll go mid to late March. We'll work with the Corps of Engineers to get appropriate water to flow to attract the fish up there. And we'll shock for a couple hours for a couple of mornings, get 500 to 600 fish. They'll take those to Lost Valley Hatchery right there in Warsaw, spawn those fish in the hatchery, rear the young, and those young produce the walleye for the entirety of the rest of the state, with exception of the Black River. Now, the Black River is a little bit different story. The Black River has actually recently been determined to be a separate species. So Black River strain of walleye are not stocked from Lake of the Ozarks. They keep those in the Black River strain. But all the other lakes that get walleye in the state are produced from the walleye that we collect out of Lake of the Ozarks. So that tells you we got a pretty strong population. And then they'll stock, it depends on what they're able to produce every year, but 55,000 fingerlings is what was put in last year. Wow. I've asked that they divide those up between several different boat ramps so that every arm of the lake will get some walleye. So historically, they haven't put any in Kaufman. It's usually been Larry Gale access. They'll stock them there, and they'll stock them at Wigwam. And so I'm looking to stock. Oh, and also stock below Harry S. Truman Dam. I'm looking to stock. This last year, we stocked 30,000 at PB2 there at the state park. And I think next year I'm going to have them stock some on the Gravois arm. I just want to see how they do in those different arms of the lake. Let's spread the wealth. And we're fixing to rewrite the walleye plan. So the current plan is set to expire this year. And we have a working group that is currently working to rewrite that walleye plan. And I'd like to bump the numbers up a little bit. We've shown that the walleye that we stock recruit to the gear, and anglers are able to catch those. So it's a pretty solid population. I'm clearly not as dense as largemouth bass or as black crappie or white crappie, but it's on par with maybe white bass. And hybrids. It's probably on par with that if you know how to fish for them.
That's a good comparison, I would say.
A couple up by the dam. That's where my condo is, up by Bagnell. And I've caught a couple up there, and then I've caught one down mid lake, and I think those are the only that I've ever caught on like the Ozarks. I caught one that was like 6 pounds.
Nice.
In the middle of the summer on a jig, and it looked not healthy because the water was dirty enough, I guess. I'm used to seeing them up north in a lot cleaner water. And like I said, it's middle of the summer, and I was like, I'm just gonna let them go again. I wasn't gonna keep it because I didn't think it would stay alive in my live well. But it makes sense. We've kind of looked for them a little bit, but we mostly fish up that way, and it sounds like there's not as much population up there.
The walleye I've caught have been up the Gravois arm, which is interesting. So a little bit away from the dam. And it tends to seem to be, and I think, Austin, you might remember 1 or 2 years ago in our series, heard some people like really getting into good messes of walleye in like that December timeframe. And I don't know if you remember or not, but I remember hearing some individuals talking about like it seemed like every other cast, it was a walleye on a jerkbait or a bass. It just kind of went back and forth. And I was like, wow, that's interesting to hear because, you don't typically hear that all the time.
And the reason that they are, you have to attract them to the water or whatever, and then kind of you're taking them out to get them to spawn is because the walleye have to like tumble their eggs, right, to spawn. Is that right?
They'll go up into more of a gravel shoal and spawn in gravel shoals. And we just don't, well, the exception of, some of those areas I told you about, we really don't have those gravel shoal areas for them to go to in most of the other parts of the lake. particularly those feeder arms coming from the north. They tend to be a little muddier.
Yeah.
But the gravois, or not the gravois, the glaze arm tends to be a little more, find a few more smallmouth down in that area. That's a little more conducive to their spawning. But the majority of them run up to Truman Dam. That's where they would have historically gone to spawn. And since that dam was closed in 72, we stopped seeing natural recruitment. And so we started adding walleye back into the population.
Right. That's awesome. Love to hear that.
Give it a little boost.
Just so everybody maybe who listening doesn't know, what is the Missouri, like the Ozarks, limits for walleye?
They're 15 inches, and I believe it's 3 fish a day.
3 fish a day.
Don't quote me on that. Look it up on the reg. I never catch 3 fish a day. I catch one, and I'm like, going back to the house and filleting this rascal. Below the dam is also another good place to catch walleye.
Okay.
You will also catch a cousin to walleye called a sauger. They're going to be a little bit darker colored. They're going to have a separation between their dorsal and their 2 dorsal fins, the soft dorsal and the spiny dorsal. So a little bit different management and on those, and in the river has a different management plan. But you may pick up sauger, again, a cousin of the walleye. They're for most people, they're pretty indistinguishable. But for the active angler on walleye, they'll say, that's a funny looking walleye. Well, it's not. It's a sauger. So
super interesting.
You will find those below the dam as well.
Good to know. Okay. Well, that was kind of like my little walleye part that I had. But
you want to break this down kind of seasonally, like he was talking about?
Yeah.
So, Jeff, if you want to start like around this time of the year, kind of what you're doing, and then kind of work us through the seasons, and then we can dive in and out of some questions as we go.
Yeah, we'll start with right now. So right now we are getting ready for paddlefish season. So as you know, Lake of the Ozarks holds the world record paddlefish caught 2 years ago, 164 pounds, 13 ounces. Paddlefish are another one of those species that do not migrate past the dam to reproduce. So again, once that dam was closed in 1972, we have been augmenting the population. We've been putting in fish that are produced, and they will take out broodstock. They will go up to Blind Pony Hatchery near Sweet Springs, Missouri, and that's where all of our paddlefish are raised. And then we'll put those back into the system. They'll raise those to be fingerlings 8 to 10 inches long. So they don't just look like a big crankbait out there and get swallowed up by all of our 3 to 5 pound largemouth bass that we have. So right now we are putting reward tags in the jaw of, our goal is to have 1,000 fish. I have 148 left to tag. Anglers that catch those fish, they can call it in and get a reward of $25 to $75 for that tag. So they all have a reward with them. There's a phone number to call. And what we're doing is we're trying to estimate how many fish are being harvested from the system. And then if it was a fish tag multiple years ago, we can get some growth rates on them because we take data on that particular fish, that particular tag number when we tag it. So if it's caught 3 or 4 years down the road, we will know that it's grown 4 inches or 5 inches or whatever it may be.
Right.
We're tagging legal size fish, so they got to be 34 inches or above. And like I said, the goal is to have 1,000 paddlefish tagged in the lake, and I've got 148 left to go, so we should be able to finish that out this week.
Awesome.
Do you think? I know you said trying to get like a number of how many are like actually harvested. Is part of that dealing with like people starting to use forward-facing sonar to snag them? That it's probably more are being caught than years past.
Yes, absolutely. There is. So going back to COVID, we saw a huge increase in not only guides, but people, the lake didn't shut down during COVID. And so a lot of people came here to participate in that. And then once the world record was caught, that attracted even more people. Who doesn't want to catch a 150-pound fish?
Right.
So we're seeing an increase in harvest and an increase in efficacy or the efficiency of people to find a fish and to snag it, not just with the forward-facing sonar, but also with dipsy divers. That's been a much more productive method for a lot of anglers versus just jerking lead. So the current regulation, there's there's no way to really tell. I mean, any other megafauna that we have in the state requires some sort of tag, right? We tag turkey, we tag deer. Well, paddlefish takes at least 10 years before it gets to harvestable size. But there's no way to track how many fish are being kept from the system. We don't know. We don't have an estimate of that. So I think part of what this will do is get an idea of, are we stocking enough fish to keep up with angler pressure? Do we need to maybe limit some of the harvest? Maybe even change some of the regulations. Currently, the regulation states that if you snag, snare, or grab a fish of legal size, you must harvest it. Well, there's anglers out there that just want to get a grip and grin and put it on, Snapchat or whatever. They don't necessarily want to keep that fish. So that's another thing we're exploring, we're looking at. In fact, I'm going to collect a 60 to 80 fish they're going to do a wound study on to see how well they heal up. Now, we know these fish are tough. How many times you pull a fish in, it doesn't have a snout, it's missing half its tail, it's got a propeller scar on it, or multiple scars from hooking. And we already release sublegal fish. You're not allowed to keep a sublegal fish. So you're already releasing that fish, and they're doing fine. We see scarred fish all the time. So some of it's looking at, should we revise that regulation to state that people are able to catch and release if they don't want to harvest the fish? That might also alleviate some of the harvest. But we're just trying to get a handle on the amount of fish that are being taken out of the system to see, do we need to put more in them, or do we need to put some regulations in place? So it's just to determine that. So that's the course of the study and why we're tagging them.
Sweet.
Yes, very, very interesting. So, okay, what about like the season after paddlefish? So let's say paddle fishing is wrapped up. Where goes next for you?
All right. So next thing we're going to do, this is something new that I've implemented. So the hatchery manager at Lost Valley reached out to me. He said, hey, we're looking at some budget cuts and everything else across the state. Right now we purchase milt or fish semen from other states, or fingerlings for hybrids, for hybrid striped bass. That's getting expensive. And sometimes the quality of that, by the time it gets to us, is not that great. Well, we've been stocking stripers in the lake every 5 years, for 20 years now. So there's some big stripers out there. So he asked me, can you find some stripers for us to use for broodstock so we can make our own, and we're not buying them from Oklahoma or Arkansas or one of those other states. So we're going to be looking for striper broodstock. That's going to go kind of throughout the spring as I get the opportunities to go. I've got a couple of hot spots. I think we can find them. But then the thing that's definitely scheduled is toward the end of March, we'll have the Corps engineers at Truman Dam that are going to run some water for us for a period of time to attract the walleye. And we'll go up there and we'll collect the walleye for the broodstock. All of those brood fish go back into the lake when they're done with them. So they take them into the hatchery. They give them a couple days to settle down. They give them a hormone to prompt them to release the eggs. The females are just gently squeezed and they'll expel all the eggs. And then the male's gently squeezed to expel the milt or the semen from the fish. They stir that together in a stainless steel bowl with a turkey feather, because you got to be real gentle with them. And then they put those in a big jar, and that jar has water running through them until they hatch. And once they hatch, then they grow to a certain size, and that's when they'll stock them back in the system. And then once they're done with the adults and the adults have recovered from the spawning process, they turn all those back into the lake as well. Yeah. So that kind of covers our paddlefish season. Going into our striper season, that's going to be going all the way in through about April. Is where we're going to be looking for those in different areas of the lake. Some of the hot spots they're known to congregate in. Then the walleye will be the end of March. Then we'll go into our black bass survey. So we do night electrofishing for black bass, as we know, largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass are very popular, particularly largemouth on the lake. And so we want to manage a good, healthy population of those. They reproduce on their own. We have a phenomenal bass fishery right now. There's not a lot of really huge bass in the system. Although, this last year's big bass bash, they topped the scales 8 pounds, not once, but twice.
Right.
So there are some big fish, and I've caught some that exceeded 8 pounds as well. So there's some 8 pounders out there. But we have an extremely strong population of 3 to 5 pound largemouth bass in the system. So what we'll do is we survey. Historically, they've only looked at the gravel or the Grand Glaze arm and the Niangua arm. I'm going to expand that and do some sampling in the Gravois arm and also in the Osage arm. Might do a little bit of work in the Little Niangua and Lynn Creek, and then some in the main lake, say around Bagnell, Shawnee Bend, Horseshoe Bend. I'd like to see what some of those populations look like as well.
Right.
And so that's going to inform anglers at the end of the year when we put out fishing prospects. It will basically, I want to break the lake up into each arm of the lake and then the main body of the lake.
Right.
If you're going to drive from St. Louis to come to the lake to fish for whatever species, I would want to know, where am I going to find black crappie? Where am I going to find the walleye? Where am I going to find, hybrid striped bass? Where am I going to find white bass? What time of year? And so we'll do that black bass survey, try to get it done. We get it done before they spawn. And I try to get all that done before we come to full pool at Memorial Day. So we try to get that done before Memorial Day. If I can't get it all done before Memorial Day, then we'll save some of the smaller arms like Little Niangua and like Lynn Creek, and save those for a little bit later in the season. But we try to be done with that by the time the bass are in the nest in bed. We don't want to pull them off the beds. Sure. And also the lake starts to get very busy after Memorial Day, as you guys know.
Oh, for sure. Do you guys use any, I know we as fishermen and tournament fishermen, whatever, everyone kind of gauges a little bit by the weights of tournaments. Do you guys have any of that on your radar kind of to help gauge areas of the lake or certain times of the year, or is it strictly just on your surveys that you're conducting yourselves?
Yes, both. We typically do the surveys on our own. Your tournaments are only going to see the bigger fish. I had a gentleman call me, and he felt that the quality of largemouth bass had diminished over the years. And he's been a lifelong angler on the lake. And I said, you know what, let's take a look at that. And so we actually took the Big Bass Bash data and looked at it, and there really wasn't any different. It stayed pretty steady throughout the years. Now, what's going to change is the amount of anglers that are participating. If it's really bad weather, you get fewer anglers show up, or something along those lines. But the consistency of decent sized fish all along kept rocking and rolling. So we haven't seen changes, at least for the past. We went back 15 years at tournament data and did not see any major changes in the population.
Wow.
So going back to a year, so we know the lake gets really busy between Memorial Day and Labor Day. That's when we tend to shift our focus to building habitat. So I'll do more habitat building, a little less of the fish survey work. And let's talk a little bit about habitat building. This is also where the public can help us. So cedar tree brush piles, they're great for attracting fish. They're a great spawning substrate for a variety of small bait fish and minnows and things like that our large fish need to eat. When the Lake of the Ozarks was built, it was essentially clear cut of all timber. And that's, 100 years ago, nearly 100 years ago. All of that is long since decomposed. So there's not a lot of nutrients that get put into the system from, organically. Because the soil is so rocky and because the lake fluctuates, we don't see a whole lot of vegetation in the lake. So anytime that we can add organic matter to the lake, it's going to increase things substantially. So I had a gentleman call me. It's like, hey, man, you guys need to put some more habitat in the lake. I'm just like, I hear you. I want to put more habitat in the lake. But so much of this lake is in private ownership, it's hard to find places where we can cut cedar trees close to the shoreline and sink them into brush piles. And he was like, I know the guy that runs Camp Sabra just south of Kaufman Access. He's like, you cut all the cedar trees out there you want. So connected us with that manager for that area lake. And here we are. If you guys have fished that anytime after September, there's 122 brush piles in the Kaufman Cove and around Sabra going into Raccoon Hollow. So
Yep.
we added a lot of habitat into there. And I'm really curious to see how well that gives the fishery a boost in that area. I already know that the crappie fishing has exploded in that area. It's done
Right.
really, really well.
I know.
I'm also, yeah, we're just continuing to add habitat, and then also some of the tributary streams that contribute to the Lake of the Ozarks. We look at the health of those as well. We're dealing with some of the smaller fish, sedimentation issues, maybe trying to get some native vegetation reestablished. So like up around PB1, we all know it's shallow as it can be up there. If we had a little more aquatic vegetation, it would enhance a lot of our fisheries quite a bit.
Yeah. You correct me if I'm wrong. Someone at one point in time told me, like, I don't even know how long ago this was, that if you used to go way up the Gravelway, there was areas that had like a bunch of lily pads and stuff. Is that true?
I don't know. I know that historically there had been some lily pads in the vicinity. Just talking to people who've been here for a long time, there had historically been some lily pads, like set up around PB1. At that access, because it is real shallow and it does have soil. I would like to see some of that reestablished.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
We have to be careful what we reestablish. You don't want to bring in a non-native grass or macro, called macrophytes. So we have emergent macrophytes. That's going to be like a lily pad or cattails. They emerge from the substrate. And then we have submergent, and that's going to be like your milfoil and coontail and things like that. So they don't ever come to the surface. So we need to look at, and that's one of the things I'd like to look at this summer is, can we get some either funding to do some vegetation surveys, see what's out there first of all at full pool, and see what's living and what's doing well, and see if we can't augment some of those habitats. One of the reasons I'd like to do that, and this leads into the next thing that we do. So in the fall, we do our crappie trap net survey. Now, the reason we trap net crappie in the fall is because we want to see the fish that were spawned in spring. They won't recruit to the gear until later in the fall. They'll be 2 to 3 inches long. In the spring, we don't want to mess with them while they're spawning because they spawn earlier than bass. And they'll be deeper where electrofishing is not really effective. So with the trap nets, they're attracted to the trap nets. So we do that in the fall. We'll also get other panfish in there as well. So bluegill, if there's one fishery on the lake that is lousy, it's bluegill. Of the, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of bluegill we caught, I think I may had a dozen over 7 inches. Wow. They just don't grow. There's 2 reasons for that. Number one, a lack of aquatic vegetation. A farm pond that's got some lily pads in it and everything else, they do fantastic. But the lake just doesn't have the vegetation for those fish to hide in. Second is that really strong 3 to 5 pound largemouth bass population. It crops those rascals off. It's a predator-prey relationship. So you got a farm pond you want to manage for gigantic bluegill, don't harvest the bass, let them stunt. And what will happen is those fish, the fish that grow bigger than what the bass can eat, will have unlimited growth potential. So you can get those, 10, 12 inch bluegill in your farm pond. But in a lake, we don't have that. We have a strong bass population, and we want to maintain a strong bass population. So they crop the bluegill off before they get any size to them. Now on the panfish side of things, red ear, you guys are familiar with red ear or shell crackers?
Yep.
You can get some whoppers out there. There's some big red ear in the lake. You don't see a lot of them, but you can definitely find some big red ear in the lake as well. Because we do have plenty of aquatic snails for them to feed on. Nice. And the ones that exceed the predation by the largemouth bass, they've got unlimited food and unlimited growth potential. So So the fall is our crappie survey.
Real quick on the crappie, what is the average size of crappie will grow in 1 year? We've had some conversations around this.
That just depends on food availability. So we actually aged some of our fish this year. So we sampled crappie in the Gravois, the Glaze, the Niangua, the Little Niangua, and 2 different areas on the Osage arm. And we aged some of those as well. The slowest growth we saw was way up in the Osage Arm. In fact, below Truman Dam, and this is good to talk about because a lot of people want to talk about moving to a 10-inch crappie limit, minimum length limit, and here's why that's not a good idea. So if you look back, was it 2019? We had all the big floods up in Truman, and they got a phenomenal hatch of crappie, and all those little crappie flowed through the dam, and we've got a ton of stunted crappie, black crappie in particular, in that area around Warsaw. They're so overpopulated in that area that we've got 5-6-year-old fish that are 8 inches. They just can't get beyond that length. So they're not doing as well. Typically, you're going to get the first year growth, they're going to be 2 to 3 inches. The second year, they're going to be 5 to 7. The third year, that's when they're going to be that 8 to 10 in ideal situations. So most of your harvestable crappie in a healthy portion of lake are going to be 3 to 4 years old. And then after that, they slow down a little bit. And that's what we typically see in the deeper portions of the lake. And here's why. So crappie, although they're classified as a warm water fish, they're kind of more of a cool water fish. They feed most productively and most aggressively at water temperatures below 72 degrees. You sit 72 degrees and they slow down. When we get in the summertime, we're like 80 degrees. If they're in 80-degree water, they're not eating. However, our lake gets a lot of turnover. We get a lot of big boats and a lot of activity. So the thermocline, you guys understand how lakes stratify in the Midwest? So that thermocline, that layer of anoxic water in the summertime is much deeper for us because we get so much activation on the surface for all the big boats and the boat races and everything else. So we tend to get cooler water down deep that has some oxygen in it. And that's why people will typically go to deep diving crankbaits in the summer and they're still catching crappie. When the surface temperature is 90 degrees, they're still catching crappie. Those crappie are feeding down deep. So we tend to get some really good growth rates on the deeper portions of the lake. The shallower portions of the lake, they tend to slow down a little bit, but not to say they're not important. We found that the most abundant young of year fish that we found were in the Little Niangua Arm and the Gravois Arm. So what's that tell me is that's where the majority of the spawning is taking place. We're getting really, really good year classes. In fact, we had one net on just down from McCubbin's Point that had over 150 crappie in it in one night set. And only 2 of them were legal limit. The rest of them were all 7 to 8 inches.
Wow.
So we got a really good spawn off 2 years ago in that area of the lake. And so those upper ends, although they may not grow as fast if they're a resident to that area, they are contributing to the reproduction that the rest of the lake needs.
I see. Go ahead, Austin.
And fish are spawning, whether it's bass or crappie or whatever. I understand, in the lake, fishing is not their top priority, but I understand that they try and work with you guys on any decision that they're going to make and see how it affects things. I guess as far as the spawn time goes, rising water is not the end of the world, but we definitely don't want to have falling water, right? As that could affect.
Correct. Because as you got to think, they're slowly bringing the pool up during the spawning period. It's not just coming up overnight. Now we may have some extreme cases where we get a lot of flood water, but they try to pass that through. They try to maintain a slow, gradual increase in water levels. If it's increasing water levels, it's not bad. It's when you have those fish that are nesting and they're nesting in shallower water, and then you have a sudden drop and the nest goes dry. So particularly with centrarchids. So centrarchids is a family of fish. So your bass, your bluegill, your crappie are all in the sunfish family. They all nest the same way. The male will clear out a nest in the bottom, a big, you'll see, bluegill nest, you'll see an area, the size of a big dinner plate. They clean all the substrate out of there and they just hang out and wait for the female to come by. Female comes by, I like your nest, like what you've done here. Think you'll be a good dad. Deposits her eggs. He fertilizes the eggs and he then guards those eggs until they hatch. And you'll see this in like May and June. you may see a whole little school of little tiny fish, big ball of them, and right underneath them, you'll see a bass. That's daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy's taking care of those fish until they can live on their own. So it's a very interesting dynamic that all sunfish do that. The male makes a nest, the female comes to the nest, lays her eggs if she likes it. He fertilizes them. He takes care of them until they're free swimming and they're on their own. So when you hear about people pulling fish off the nest, a lot of times that's what they're doing. They're either pulling a female off the nest that she's thinking about spawning, because this doesn't just happen right away. She'll kind of hang out there for a while. And then, of course, if you pull that fish off the nest, then all other predators come in there and gobble up the fry or the eggs or whatever it may be. Or in the case of, like you said, the water levels, if you drop the water levels and now all of a sudden these nests are dry or they're really, really shallow, and the water temperatures get too high, you may not have spawning success. So yeah, deeper water's good, shallow water's not so good.
And say it happened where the water got pulled out a little bit or something, like, and their original spot got messed up. Will they spawn? Will they spawn again in the same season, or are they kind of like a one and done? Or
no, they may spawn multiple times. You see that a lot with, like, you ever wade fish creeks, you see the little long-eared sunfish. That's one of the ones that are like most pronounced. You know, they'll spawn for an extended period of time. It's not necessarily one and done. But once the male is taking care of hatchlings, he's going to hang out there until they can free swim on their own.
Very cool. Interesting. So we were talking about netting the crappie. Another side tangent real quick. So you were around in your position for what Austin and I were kind of calling the great shad kill last year in the winter. So fishing, at least for us and many others, I think, got a little bit tougher. What is a giant shad kill like that doing to make the fishing a little bit tougher? Are the fish just having that much more to eat, and that's why it's so much tougher? And what is that going to do? What is that going to do for like this year and maybe future years to come?
So shad kills are natural. A shad is an extremely prolific breeder. When they breed, I mean, you've seen schools of shad on the lake. It's just, there's thousands and thousands of them. They are a prey species by design, by nature. And so they're what we call an R selected species, or a rate. They spawn at a very, very high rate, have lots and lots and lots of babies because they're very fragile. If you guys have ever tried to cast net shad and keep them alive in a live well, you know it's hard to keep those rascals alive. They die so quick and so easy. They're very fragile. So nature has overcome that by making a whole bunch of them. A shad kill every winter is going to be natural. I'm surprised I haven't got a call on them this year with having some of that ice last week. But that's natural. What's it going to do to the fishing? Yeah, there's going to be a lot more wounded or dying fish that are easy prey that are going to be consumed by those fish. And fish, so they're going to be full, number one. Number two, all fish are exothermic, meaning that they are the temperature of their environment. When that temperature goes down, their metabolism slows down. When the temperature goes up, the metabolism speeds up. Now, case like the crappie, once you get to a threshold to where they expend more energy to digest that food than what they would gain by it, they just quit eating.
I see.
So really, really hot temperatures, a lot of fish will just quit eating. But their metabolism will slow down. So that bite is slow. They're a little more finicky, and they're full because there's a plethora and an abundance of easy prey out there. So that's why your fishing is going to slow down during those times of a big fish kill. That's two things. It's going to be temperature and it's going to be availability of prey, and they're just going to be full.
Interesting. I wonder which one we were in last year, Austin, because it didn't matter what school we threw at. It seemed like you maybe get one or two crappie to bite, and compared to like the 2 or 3 years prior to that, I mean, I think we saw last year by far surpassed the shad kill from probably at least 4 or 5 years before that, if I had to say. And
we had a fantastic shad hatch this year, and when we netted crappie, the early crappie that we started catching, so this was late September. I don't start fishing until we get water temperatures below 72 degrees. But the early nets, all of them were just gorged on shad. I mean, just fat with shad. You couldn't have poked another one down their throat. So Particularly all those fish on the gravway arm, they're going to grow through the winter. They're going to
Yeah.
get they're going to put some growth on, and you're going to have a lot of 9-inch fish, 9 to 10 inch fish in the gravway arm or the glaze arm this year. Gravway arm too, because we put in all the habitat, and we're already seeing the benefits of that. So
That's awesome.
Excellent.
just while we're talking about that habitat too, so if you guys have the Mo Fishing app.
I have the Mo Hunting app. I don't know if I have the Mo Fishing app.
Yeah. So if you go to the Mo Fishing app, every year in March, we take all of the habitat work that we've done and make one upload into the Mo Fishing app. I believe that some of the other applications will borrow from that because it's free and open to the public. So the Mo Fishing app, though, after March, it will update where all those were put in, to the coordinate.
I see.
Of course, if you've got a good fish finder, you'll find them.
Yeah.
Right.
So is that something where, like, because I know, like, back in the day, we used to fish Table Rock quite a bit. And I remember being able to go to, I think at the time it was a website. I can't remember what it was. But you could literally, like, download all these fish attracting piles to an SD card and then plug it into your graph. And then, boom, you'd have all these waypoints. And we used to just bounce what would be piles or would be old piles that weren't there anymore. And we would just kind of check off the list. And we did pretty good fishing out of the ones that we did find and fish. But
I think that function may be available on the app. I haven't done that myself personally. I'm a biologist, right? I don't make a lot of money. I don't have forward facing sonar and a big fancy sonar on my boat. It's 15 years old. Not to say that I don't like to fish and love to fish. It's just I haven't invested in that type of technology personally.
Sure. Gotcha.
So.
Well, cool. Okay. So after netting your crappie in the fall, where do you head from there?
So then we get a little bit of time off, as well as I do, that chronic wasting disease is a big emphasis of the Department of Conservation right now, and monitoring that disease requires all hands on deck to be able to stand up check stations, to be able to take lymph nodes from deer. So we'll typically, we got the holidays too, Thanksgiving, Christmas. And so you've been working hard, long days all summer long. And even in the spring before, a lot of times we'll try to take some downtime then and, do some maintenance on equipment, mend and repair our nets as need be. Like the trap nets for the crappie, they have to be re-dipped in we use a latex material now. It used to be tar, but we use a latex material. It's a little more environmentally friendly, where you got to protect that equipment because these nets are not cheap.
Sure.
So we'll use the fall to kind of get reset and re-geared towards stuff.
Gotcha.
So fishing kind of slows down for us in the fall. There is also, it's not done every single year, but the catfish survey. So the catfish study, they just finished one up last year. Every 5 years they do a multi-year study. So we have that slot limit on the lake for blue cats. And so that's because the population, the most prolific portion of the population is that protected slot. So we want to make sure that they continue to spawn and have success in the lake. And we've got a lot of young fish we need to or younger fish that can be thinned down. So that's why we got that 26-inch, it's 26 to 34 and only 2 over 34, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. So that's the protected slot. You can keep them below that. You can keep 2 above that. But that would be something that would be done in the fall. And that's typically done with jug lines. I would like to do a little bit of survey this next fall to see what our flathead population looks like. And I'm just curious. I know there's some big flatheads out there, and there's quite a few of them. They're incredible fish. I just love them. So I'd like to do a little bit more of that. That would be done in the fall as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so that kind of breaks down more or less your entire year, correct?
That's the entire year.
That's a busy schedule, and you guys always got something new and fun to kind of adventure and learn about.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to try to implement, and currently it's being reviewed, with the lake. all of the lakes that we Department of Conservation manage have a management plan, and the Lake of the Ozark management plan is due to be updated as well. I'd
Mhm.
like to include some fall walleye index netting. So that's a walleye population survey that's widely accepted as a way to determine what your population looks like. We've not done as good a job as I think we can do in monitoring that population to see what the numbers are. And it basically you float a gill net, an experimental gill net, and you sink an experimental gill net. They typically fish those overnight or for 24 hours. I think I just want to fish mine overnight to reduce mortality. I don't want to kill a bunch of the fish that we have out there for anglers. And so if we wait until the water's cool, the fish become a little more active, and just fish them for 12-hour sets instead of 24-hour sets. I think we should get a pretty good idea of the walleye population. So that's something I would like to incorporate next year, but that's going to have to come with our reservoir sport fish working group and also our walleye management working group. So nobody runs rogue. We all have, other people that we answer to and try to come up with the best strategy.
Right.
Awesome. Well, Austin, I still have kind of some random shotgun questions. What do you got for
I've
Jeff?
got a lot of questions actually.
Let's just start.
We can shoot off of. I got a few things kind of about tournaments and then tagging some fish. We'll start with tournaments first. Do you think that tournaments have any impact on like just fishing pressure and bass mortality, especially in the summertime? Like,
that question's come up many times, particularly as we get more and more and more tournaments on the lake. Yes, there is some mortality associated with tournament angling. As you well know, you weigh in a dead fish, it's going to count against you. So I know that our anglers are doing the best that they can to keep those fish as healthy as they can in their live wells, and then get them returned to lake as soon as possible with little harm as possible. I'd say in the summer it's probably a little rougher on them, particularly if you're pulling them from deep water. I know a lot of people will fizz bass, fizz the bladder so they can swim back down below. I'm not too concerned about tournament mortality, and here's why. How many anglers do you know that actually harvest bass for consumption?
not many.
Not many.
Not many.
And our limit is, they're the bigger fish. Anybody I know that likes to eat bass prefers to eat smaller bass. And so I don't think that we get a lot of table fare mortality from anglers that are harvesting bass. Now, yeah, there are some. My dad loves bass. He lives out in Arizona, fishes Roosevelt Lake all the time, and he just goes on and on about rosemary bass. He likes to get a big 6-7 pound bass, fillet it out, poke a bunch of rosemary in it, cover it in butter, and bake it. He loves it.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I'd rather eat a walleye.
Sure.
So I don't think we have a lot of anglers that are harvesting those fish. And so if there's any tournament mortality associated with that, I think it kind of takes the place of angler harvest mortality. So not too concerned about it. Not to say that anglers shouldn't do their level best to, take care of those fish and they return them into the wild. And I know tournaments are good about it too. They want to protect the resource, right?
Right.
If they don't have good bass population, then what's the sense in doing what we're doing?
Yeah,
absolutely. And then I have another question. I know this has been probably brought up before too. Is have you guys ever done any tagging of bass and like done like a study of that just to view their movements and
especially like tournament release fish?
Yeah, there's been a lot of papers that have been done on that, and it's kind of all over the board. We personally have not. I have not participated in a study on Lake of the Ozarks to see where those bass go back out, but I know that has been studied. They'll put a telemetry tracker in a fish, so it's basically a little pinger in the fish, and they can track its movement. I know that has been done, and it's really kind of all over the board. They may have a particular spot in the lake that they want to go to, and they're going to head right back to that area of the lake. They may like it right where they're put. I typically, when I'm doing my sampling, I will avoid sampling areas for largemouth bass that are going to be close to where a lot of tournaments are held. That's going to be most of your public boat ramps.
Right.
You know, PB2, Larry Gale, Kaufman, Gravois, you know, those type of areas. I try to stay away from those because I don't want to artificially inflate those numbers in case there's some large resident bass in the area that were released. I know that some of the tournaments have release boats. This is one of the things that Johnny Morris and Bass Pro Shops had researched. And they said, hey, let's put them on a barge and distribute them back out in the lake to kind of get away from some of that bias where they may stack up in an area. So it's really kind of all over the board. You know, some of them go back where they want to go, and some of them go to new places. Some of them stay put. It's really all over the board. So I wouldn't be too terribly concerned about that.
Yeah.
Best thing is just get them back in the water as healthy as you can.
Right.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Well, that was my question for that.
Yeah. Let me see.
I've got questions about some spotted bass, if you'd like to talk about that for a minute.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
How is our spotted bass population? Let's start with that.
Small.
Small.
They're small. Yeah, they're real small. I know some of the lakes that we've had, Table Rock, I believe, just recently reduced their minimum length limit from 15 to 12. In all of our spring surveys that we did, I would say maybe 10% of the fish that we caught electrofishing. Now, granted, I'm electrofishing. I'm catching all the fish. I'm not selecting fish based on lure size and habitat and stuff like that.
Correct.
We're collecting all the fish because we want to see what's coming up to fill the voids as other fish age out of the system or are caught or captured or die or whatever else. But maybe 10% of our spotted bass that we captured in the Grand Glaze arm and Niangua arm were harvestable length. We're above that 15 inches. So I wouldn't mind seeing us maybe drop that down to a 12-inch. Of course, I'm not the one that makes that decision. I have to go through a whole process for regulation changes, but it can be done, and it has been done on other reservoirs. So they're pretty small for the most part. They are very small.
What causes like Table Rock to have a bunch of spotted bass and Ozarks to have not as many?
I think it's a regional thing. So historically, that chain of rivers had more spotted bass to begin with. Water clarity has something to do with it. A spotted bass prefers more of a habitat that a smallmouth is going to inhabit. They'll also find that Table Rock has more smallmouth in it too than what we do. We just don't find a lot of smallmouth unless you go way up in the tributary arms. So yeah, it has to do more with the location that we're at.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So from a kind of from a bass standpoint, take us through like how quickly does a largemouth bass grow in a year's time, and then like say by the time a bass gets to be about 4 pounds. Now, granted, good living conditions and what they're eating is going to play a factor, but on average, how old is like a typical 4-pound bass?
So I haven't done any age studies on Lake of the Ozarks, but I would think that it would be a pretty good growth rate just based on the abundance of prey that we have and good water temperatures for them. I would say your 4-pound bass is probably going to be 5 to 7. That'd be a good guess. 5 to 7 years old. Maybe a little bit older. 5 might be a little aggressive on that. So let's say 6 or 7.
6 or 7. Okay.
Yeah.
So
they grow faster than smallmouth.
Sure.
And they grow faster than spots. For sure.
Gotcha. So with that, I kind of ask everybody this, and I'd be curious to see your opinion. I'm sure it's what I would probably think it is. If you had to give Lake of the Ozarks a letter grade on how good of a fishery it is from like A to F, what would you rate Lake of the Ozarks? And you can rank it per fish species.
All right. I'd say for bass, solid B, a solid B. And that's because we've got a good fishery, a healthy population of fish. We don't see a whole lot of really, really big fish, but a lot of that also has to do with our latitude. So I'll use this right now to talk a little bit about Florida strain and Texas strain. There have been people that have wanted to put Florida strain and Texas strain, and we did a little bit of genetic analysis. We're going to continue to do that in the lake, thinking they'll get bigger. The problem is those genetic strains of bass are accustomed to much warmer water temperatures. We get too cold up here. And so we've seen actually our neighbors in Kentucky just recently did a study where those Florida strain and Texas strain bass were actually smaller than their native variation of bass. So us being a little bit further north, you're just not going to see a lot of, double digit bass. It's just not, the further south you go, you get into your double digit bass. So our genetic strain is going to be solid. So I give it a solid B.
Okay.
A good solid B for largemouth bass fishing. What do you want to do next?
Nah, hit crappie.
You want to break it down into whites and blacks?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So you're going to find blacks prefer clear water. So the closer you get to the dam, the more clear the water is, you're going to find more blacks. A black tends to be a heavier bodied fish, a thicker fillet. You get a black crappie and a white crappie, they're exact same length. That black crappie is going to outweigh them by 15%, just because they're a thicker, heavier bodied fish. Black crappie, I get a B plus for black crappie. In the lower reaches of the lake. So the bigger portions where people are shooting docks, the deeper portions of the lake that are a little bit clear. And water clarity can vary. We use what's called a Secchi disc, which to measure our water clarity. And basically it's a 10-inch diameter disc that's got basically an X in the middle of it. 2 squares are white, 2 squares are black. And you lower that down until you can no longer see it. And that depth is whatever it is. Well, we'll have Secchi depths at Kaufman and Horseshoe Bend and right around Bagnell that can be 60 or 70 inches. I mean, that rascal's going way down there. But you move up into the Gravois, the upper Gravois, it may only be 25, 26 inches.
Yeah. Big difference.
The Osage arm always stays a little bit stained. You got to think about the geology of mid-Missouri. You've got a lot of farm fields and stuff up north that wash in a lot more sediments, where you got Ozark streams coming in from the south that are a little bit clearer water. So the closer you get to the dam, the more those sediments fall out, the clearer it gets. You're going to have that B plus fishery for black crappie the closer you get to the dam. White crappie is going to be I'm gonna give white crappie a B minus in the lake, simply because they're more abundant than the black crappie are, but they just don't tend to put on the weight. And maybe that's just an artifact of the species itself.
Sure.
But I've seen more hogs, hog black crappie than I do white crappie. So I would do a B minus on crappie. Walleye, I'm going to go with a C, just because they're a little harder to find, a little harder to catch. I don't think we have as many anglers fishing for them,
I would say.
And I'd say white bass, and some people may argue with me. It depends, once again, on the white bass where you go. I think the Osage arm probably has the better white bass fishery of all of the arms, and I haven't done enough of a study on those to really give them a grade. So
I see.
The jury's still out. And
Fair.
and I paddlefish. Come on, this is the world capital, man. This is where people come to Truman Lake, Grand Cherokee, Lake of the Grand Cherokee in Oklahoma. They come to Lake of the Ozarks. Table Rock's getting into the business quite a bit too. But so paddlefish is just by the sheer number of fat fish that we have out there. I think it's a good solid B as well. Maybe a B plus. There's a lot of big fish out there.
Catfish?
Catfish?
Yeah.
Not as many big ones as I'd like to see.
Yeah.
I know River Monsters did an episode. Remember that? Did you ever see that episode?
At Lake of the Ozarks?
No, yeah. River
did it really?
One on blue cats. Yeah, Jeremy Wade came out and did one on blue cats, and
that's cool.
Yeah, they caught a few. I'd like to see a few more bigger fish out there, but we'll see with the current regulation in place, see if they go a little further. But you can find a lot of eaters if you're just going out for table fare. There's an abundance of those sub 26-inch fish that you can catch and put on a stringer. So I'd give it a I give it a B minus.
Okay.
Flatheads, I don't know yet. I haven't caught enough of them to really be able to give them a grade, but they're a solitary predator.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a little harder to find, and a little harder to get an estimate on them. Channel cat, not very good. They don't get very big. There's quite a few of them. A channel cat is more of a scavenger.
Sure.
And we just don't have a lot of dead stuff in the lake for them to eat on, except for the shad kills. And so, yeah, I'd say I give it a C minus on channel cat. They're all pretty small when you find them. There's not very many of them either.
Mm-hmm.
So
what about like the this is hilarious for me in Austin. What about like the drum population? Boy, we sure seem to catch a lot of drum, especially right now.
Yes, we have a lot of drum.
DNA.
Yeah, freshwater drum. I tell you what, freshwater drum are kind of undervalued in my opinion. They make a nice fillet, a nice big boneless fillet, but they don't cook up like any other fish. They're a little more rubbery.
Yeah.
And they tend to like curl up and knock all your breading off when you fry them.
Yep.
But I do a thing called poor boy lobster. So fillet your drum out, dice it into 1 inch cubes, 1.5 inch cubes, and get some crab boil. Get some crab boil going on the stove. Add a little sugar to it as well, and be generous with your crab boil. Put a lot of crab boil in there, a lot of seasoning, and just blanch it. Literally, you just want the outside of that meat to turn white, and then pull it back up. In fact, the old Cajun guy down in Louisiana that taught me how to do it, he said, "What you want to do?" He said, "You set that basket down in that boiling water." He said, "Say, I love myself some po' boy lobster. Pull it out. You're done." Dip it in drawn butter, and it's delicious. Absolutely.
That's the most Cajun way I've ever heard something described of.
Yeah.
And it's simple and it works. I like that.
Yeah. And they call them stone perch or gaspergoo. They don't call them drum.
Stone perch.
Stone perch or gaspergoo.
I'm gonna say that next tournament, Austin. When I catch a drum, be like, another stone perch.
Another stone perch. Got me a gaspergoo.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, they're
abundant.
I don't know, underutilized. I've heard it said that commercially they're used for an ingredient to making artificial crab meat because it's a very sweet meat. Not very sweet. Yeah.
Interesting.
That'll be our business, Nate. We'll start catching drums, start selling it for
the Mo drum business.
So one of the reasons
it'll be like Bubba Drum shrimp, but it'll be Bubba Drum.
Bubba Drum. One of the reasons that drum are so popular in the lake is because that's a very important species for our freshwater mussels. So freshwater mussels, particularly the Osage River, used to have some of the most abundant freshwater mussels in the central United States. The button industry is what people used to harvest them for making buttons until the plastic industry come around, and they no longer made buttons out of that. And also the cultured pearl industry would take the shell and inject it into. But anyway, that industry ceased. But freshwater drum is probably the most universal host for freshwater mussels. A lot of these mussels what they do is, in order to reproduce, the females will sieve, they all filter water. They just sieve water all the time. And the females will sieve the sperm that the males release into the water column. So you could have literally hundreds of males could fertilize a female. She'll packet that, and she'll keep that sperm in her body. And then she packets it into little packets of baby mussels, baby clams, baby mussels. And then they send a lure out. And that lure mimics a fish, a crayfish, a hellgrammite, a worm. All of these mussels have a different luring thing that they use to attract fish. And drum is probably a universal host for most of those mussels, particularly a lot of the mussels that we see in the river. So your heel splitters, there's a whole bunch of mussels that exist out there. But so drum were very, very common in the lake or in the river before it was ever dammed. And so they've just continued to live there ever since. Same thing with buffalo. Buffalo is another big river species that you're going to see. Both bigmouth buffalo and smallmouth buffalo, you'll find those in the lake as well. Wow. And it's just they're an artifact from they were in the river before we dammed it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of that, slightly is like Kentucky Lake and all them, they've really been dealing with carp, and that was the Tennessee Valley or Tennessee River type system. Is there any threat to Lake of the Ozarks and something similar of that nature, or is it pretty well protected?
So one of the things I did with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service before I left is I was working on innovative gears to be able to catch those carp.
Mhm.
Some people may have seen the Pulpier net, which is it's a boat that has two big nets that go over the side, and they electrify the water and just scoop the fish up that are stunned. And that's one of the things that I developed when I was with the Cajun fella down in Louisiana. That's how they catch shrimp down there, is with Pulpier boats. Pulpier is a Cajun term, means butterfly. So it's a butterfly boat. But we worked very closely with Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley on some of the eradication stuff. The U.S. Geological Survey worked with them. The difference is those lakes have a lock and dam. So they have commercial traffic that is able to go freely through those locks and dams. So they would lock through these fish, elevate the ship, and then the ship would go into there and the fish would get out with it. So that's why they've got those populations. We've got Asian carp in the Osage River. We have big heads and we have silvers. But we don't have a lock and dam to let them through. Does that mean they can still get in? Not through a lock and dam system, but our biggest threat would be a bait bucket introduction. So somebody casting for shad down below the dam, a small silver carp or a small big head carp looks very, very similar to a shad. Mm-hmm. And if you don't pay real close attention, you can get kind of a Noah fallacy in the lake if you return your bait into the lake. So what I would recommend is those anglers that if you're casting for bait somewhere else and bring it to the lake, first of all, I don't advise you do that. Get your bait from the lake you're going to fish. We got plenty of shad in the lake. You can cast net for shad in the lake. Mm-hmm. But if somebody were to bring them in, from somewhere else, do not let that bait go in the lake when you're done. If you're not going to use it all, throw it in the dumpster, throw it on shore, feed the raccoons, whatever, but don't throw it back in the lake. Mm-hmm. And then just be cognizant of any bait that you do catch. Make sure it's what you think it is, because they look very, very similar to a gizzard shad. But that would most likely be how they would be introduced into the lake, would be by a bait bucket. They're not going to get in through a lock and dam.
And if that happens, would it be like able to stop them before it got way out of hand, or how does that work?
I don't know.
Boy, I can only imagine going down in the summer and fish going behind every boat going. It'd be bad.
Well, that's just the thing. Their tourist industry has just crashed on Lake Barkley and Lake Kentucky because of that very reason. Not only the physical threat of these fish jumping up in the air, but they're extremely prolific, meaning that they have lots and lots and lots and lots of babies, and they grow extremely fast, and they don't have native predators that could crop them down fast enough. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, they feed they're filter feeders. They feed at the very lowest portion of the food chain. So I've personally seen, when I started working with the Fish and Wildlife Service on the Missouri River, gizzard shad was the primary prey species on the Missouri River. So these things got out during the flood of 93. Mm-hmm. We detected them in 98, and by 99, 2/3 the biomass that we caught in these study sites was Asian carp.
Wow.
2/3 of the biomass, 75%. Well, not quite 75%, but 2/3 of that biomass. And what we saw at the same time was gizzard populations plummeted as Asian carp populations increased. So they replaced our native
gizzard shad.
The native gizzard shad.
Wow.
So if they were to get in the Lake of the Ozarks and they were to get a foothold, they would absolutely change the dynamics of the lake. They would change our basic forage from gizzard shad to Asian carp.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And they grow extremely fast. So in 1 year, they're 8 inches long. There's not a lot of fish can consume that.
Right.
In 1 year. Mm-hmm. So, in 2 years, they're 12, 14 inches long. Mm-hmm. 3 years, they're 4 or 5 pounds. So they grow extremely fast.
Wow. My next question is a little different topic, but we hit it earlier and I forgot to ask it. Kind of going back to brush piles real quick. For people who like to sink their own brush, what advice do you have to give them when they're sinking it? Like of location and like what's your best, like tying cinder blocks to the brush? What's the best to do?
So they sink best when they're green. So if you are going to sink your own brush piles, I would sink them when they're green. So you get a 6-inch diameter cedar tree. One block will typically do it if it's green. One cinder block, 8-inch cinder block, 8 by 16. If by the time you get up to 8 inches, it generally takes two. But if it's dry, it's going to take double that. So if you can sink them when they're green, it's best to sink them when they're green. I'd also I'd target water that's going to be not too deep. So if you're putting it in water, I'd say more than 30 foot deep, a lot of time it's not going to be effective for most of the fish. So 30 foot would be the maximum I would put it in. I know a lot of docks can be out there over, even deeper than that. You can suspend those.
Sure.
Basically tie a cable onto one end of the tree and a weight on the other end of the tree, and you could suspend it to whatever depth you want below your dock. And I highly recommend organic material. The lake has enough plastic in there. Let's not add any more.
Sure.
And I understand that, some of these PVC contraptions will attract fish, but they're not going to have the benefit of, insects and natural wood is. It's going to be another plastic to break down in the environment. So I'd recommend live cedars. Hardwoods work well also, but they decompose faster. So you can get about 10 years out of a good cedar. About 10 years before it decomposes. But hardwoods decompose much faster, and they're not as dense. So you got to think about how a cedar grows. It's really dense and compact, lots of little bitty branches and stuff. So it provides a better habitat because what we're really doing is you're having bait fish spawn on that. So fathead minnows, when they raise fathead minnows in a like a hatchery setting or a bait breeder, they take that orange snow fence and they put out there. That's what their eggs are adhesive and they stick to that. So if you have something with a lot of interstitial spaces and a cedar tree has that, you're going to get better reproduction of bait fish that's going to attract your bigger fish in there.
I see.
And it'll decompose naturally. The oils in that wood in the cedar, it slows the decomposition down.
Nice. How quickly will you typically see a fish kind of move into a new green brush pile like that, or will it take a year?
No, there's been some debate on that, and they move in pretty quick. When we were sinking all the 122 brush piles around Sabra Peninsula and in Raccoon Hollow and Kaufman Cove, literally we could see fish on them the very next day. Because there's bugs and everything else in that, and the fish are just kind of curious. They're in there checking it out. So literally the fish occupied that the very next day. Now, as it decomposes and some of that leaf litter falls off, it's going to be a little easier to fish. And it's going to be your terrestrial insects that are on it will be replaced by aquatic insects after about, I'd say, 6 months to a year. And a lot of that's going to depend on when you put it in there. Clearly the summer is when insects are more active.
Sure.
And if you put them in the fall, then you get whatever eggs are going to be laid on them, and then they'll hatch out the next year. So you'll get some immediate response, but the best benefit's probably going to be the following year after you put them in. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Austin, what else you got? He's kind of talked about a lot of the things that I had. I guess one thing would forward-facing sonar. Do you think that is going to have any effect, or will you guys think you'll have studies in the future that may look into that? And if you need to adjust any limits, maybe especially for crappie, or
I don't think that the conservation department is in the business of limiting technology. It's out there. I mean, how do you enforce that? Let's say that, just sake of argument, say you can't use forward-facing sonar. how do you enforce that?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. It's impossible. And you still got to make the fish bite. It helps you to find the fish, but the fish still have to bite. As technology has increased, we've also seen a decrease in anglers over the years. There's a guy who wrote a book a while back, Richard Louv, called Last Child in the Woods. And it talked about the millennial generation and younger were less and less and less involved in the out of doors. Fishing, hunting, hiking, all that kind of stuff. There's more bird watchers and bicyclists than what there are anglers and hunters. So we've seen that. So we've seen a decrease in angling pressure in the younger generations of anglers. And I'm not saying that all millennials and Gen X or Gen Z and all that and Gen Alpha, they don't fish. There are some that do, but proportionally, there are fewer and fewer people doing that. So the technology's out there, and I think maybe that's helped to balance out some of the harvest. So I'm not too concerned about it. If it gets you out there and go fishing, I think it's a wonderful sport. It's a wonderful way to get a really good table fare to feed your family. Yeah, I say go for it.
Awesome.
I don't think we should limit it at all.
Awesome.
I encourage you.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
And when you buy that $5,000 forward-facing sonar, a portion of that goes back to the Dingle Johnson tax to come back to us to help fund our efforts through sport fish restoration. So
there you go. The more you spend, the better it is.
Yep. Austin, I don't know if I had a question about it. Maybe you can answer it better than me, but when I bring it up, once upon a time we talked about like a program that some different states use.
Oh yeah, he kind of mentioned that a little bit about the share lunker and the genetics. Like Texas has the share lunker program, and you guys kind of or have done some kind of genetic type stuff. But you mentioned that our latitude kind of limits the growth of the fish.
Yeah, so we had just we just finished our Missouri Natural Resources Conference. So we have it at Margaritaville every year. Conservation Department, select people from the Conservation Department come in. And that's one of the things that was put out during the Missouri chapter of the American Fisheries Society meeting was, share the lunker program works great in Arkansas, it works great in Texas, works great in some of those other states. We could potentially implement that if we find a genetic strain of fish that's adapted to this latitude. It could be something we could do, but definitely some of the studies that have come out and shown if you take those Florida and Texas strain bass and you put them into the cooler waters of the northern reservoirs, Kentucky did a study on this, and they actually grew less and slower and were in poor condition because it's too cold. So I think of deer herds, right? Your northern deer, they get huge and big and strong because they're adapted to that latitude.
Sure.
That just they're just not going to. They're going to do better in certain environments than they are others.
Yeah,
nature's way, and you start trying to move stuff around, and you're fighting another thing, and it's a big complex web, really.
Don't bring Florida strain bass into the Lake of the Ozarks, please, or Texas strain. They're not going to do good.
All right. I'm kind of winding down on questions.
I've got a good ending question for him.
Okay, I'll hit this one real quick because it's kind of an ending question, and then we'll give it to you to end it off. What is a piece of advice you'd give to someone who's looking to get into fishing more on Lake of the Ozarks?
Some of the best sources of information you're going to find is going to be your local tackle shops, right? Or a club, a club that fishes on a regular basis. Find somebody that knows a little bit about fishing the area, because chances are, me as an angler, I'm more than happy to introduce somebody to fishing and take them out on the boat. And I think you guys probably share that same sentiment. A lot of tournaments will have, where you have a non-boater will come on board and mix it up with those people. So I would speak with people who do it on a regular basis. And if you're just going to come in cold, go talk to the local bait shop. Those guys, there's going to be guys and gals hanging out in the bait shop. They're going to say, hey, this lure's hot right now. This one's not. You can learn quite a bit from, particularly with social media. People like to post all the fish they catch, particularly if it's a guide service,
Mm-hmm.
which is that's another thing that's underrated. Hire a guide, let him show you a few things, see if it's something you want to get into. Go out there and catch a limited fish and have a good time. So a guide might be another thing for somebody wanting to get into fishing to look that up. And of course, it's like anything else, find a reputable guide.
Mm-hmm.
But talk to those legends, talk to a guide, talk to people that are in that industry, and they won't steer you wrong. They'll point you in the right direction.
That's some great advice. That was very good. Austin, what else you got with?
Kind of the ending thing is, what's the single biggest thing that anglers could do to help improve the fishery of Lake the Ozarks?
Perfect.
Single biggest thing that they could do to help improve the fishery at the Lake of the Ozarks. I would say just clean up after yourself. Fishing line, your trash or garbage. Be respectful of other anglers, but that's probably the biggest thing. Just clean up after yourself. I think that we do have a pretty good lake. A lot of times the lake will get a bad rap about water quality, but believe it or not, the water quality is pretty big or pretty good. We've got decent water quality. So I'd say just, clean up after yourself and hey, share the experience with somebody else. That's, just like your previous question, get somebody else involved in it because it's a fun time. I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to and some of their greatest and fondest memories were fishing with grandpa or fishing with dad or fishing with an uncle or, our whole family would go out fishing. So get out there and enjoy it.
I had the privilege last spring to take a coworker of mine and his 9-year-old son at the time out on a boat, and it was his first time on the boat. And boy, if it didn't just he was smiling from ear to ear for all 8 hours.
It lights him up. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It just brought me back to when I first got into it, and I had the best day. And we caught a pretty good mess of fish, between crappie and white bass, and he had a lot of fun. We all had a lot of fun, but I'm definitely looking forward to some more of that because just introducing somebody into our awesome sport is just it's so wonderful.
Yeah, there's nothing like seeing a kid I've got 3 granddaughters and just seeing their faces light up and it's not just, it's everything. My oldest, she'll sit in the deer stand with us. She's been on a turkey hunt or two. When they catch that fish, they get all excited. I love frog gigging. But frog season comes on. My birthday is the same day frog season opens. So guess what I'm doing on my birthday? I'm gigging frogs.
That's awesome.
So, to take them out gigging frogs and just enjoy what nature has to offer.
Absolutely. Yep. Creation's a cool place and we just get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, he had a fishing show that you want to plug.
Yeah.
Jeff, too.
Oh yeah. Once again, this weekend on the 14th. So it's Valentine's Day. Take your sweetheart to the Community Christian Church in Camdenton for the Lake of the Ozarks Fishing Expo. I think they've got about 70 vendors right now. It's going to be very kid friendly. They've got some folks giving stuff away for kids. It's a free event. So it goes from 9 to 3. Again, that's the Lake of the Ozark Fishing Expo. And that is Community Christian Church on North Highway 5, Business 5 in Camdenton. So
perfect.
9 to 3. Enjoy that. It'll be a good time. We'll be there with a booth and, coloring books for kids and answering questions people may have. But yeah, a lot of vendors are in the area, some local lure manufacturers and stuff like that. So it's all local people. So
cool. Jeff, if anybody wants to ask you a question or wants to get a hold of you, what's a good way for them to get a hold of you?
Probably the best way is to email me because I'm in the field a lot. And so, I try to check my voicemails when I get back to the office, but my email is Jeff, Jeff, .Finley, Finley, at MDC for Missouri Department of Conservation, .mo.gov. So Jeff.Finley at mdc.mo.gov. And I really enjoy talking to the public. Just like those brush piles around Kaufman Beach, that would have never happened were it not for a conversation I had with a concerned angler. And he turned us on. So we're looking to hopefully work with the Boy Scout camp in Laurie and get some more brush piles put in there. And yeah, if anybody's got, I had a guy on Piney Point off on the Little Niagara called me up and said, "Hey, I got about 15 cedar tree tops. Do you want them?" I was like, "Absolutely, I want them." So where are you going to put them? I said, "Right in front of your house." He was like, "Great,
Perfect, win-win."
So yeah, if there's any of those, even if it's a small project and you're close to the shore, we can drag those things out and sink
I
them.
do have one other thing you can answer to this. I'm not sure if you would be able to help or not. We have our tournaments out of Kaufman, and a lot of people have mentioned wanting to get an additional street light that goes over the actual boat ramp, so when they're backing down, they can see. Is that something?
So the guys that manage that are out of my office right there. We have a real problem with those street lights. People like to shoot them out.
Oh, really?
Don't shoot them out. Yeah, we're forever down there having replaced light bulbs. I can talk to the guys that manage the guys in the same office I work out of Camdenton. They manage those areas, and we can see if we can't get some street lights added. That would also benefit that handicap fishing ramp too. Just right there off the ramp.
Yeah.
That would benefit that as well. So if people yeah.
That would be very nice.
All the brush piles I put right out in front of it.
Exactly. Perfect.
That's who put those there.
Yeah. Most of them are within the buoy line out there. So past the buoy, it gets a little too deep for them. But most of them are within the buoy line. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, good to know. Well, Jeff, we can't thank you enough for hopping on with us and talking with us. I know I got some great information and knowledge from tonight's conversation.
Yeah, great.
Really appreciate your time, Jeff.
Absolutely. If you guys have anything come up, you want to talk specifically about something in the future, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help.
Awesome. Yep. We definitely going to have your email saved, and hopefully this podcast keeps going for a while, and down the road we'll have you back on and hopefully got a whole new list of questions for you. So
you bet. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we absolutely enjoyed it. So one last time, if you've stick with us this long, thanks for watching, and come join us on February 21st at our 4th tournament of the winter series. Austin and I love to get to meet the anglers, and whether it's your first one or your 4th one or somewhere in between, we just love having you out there to fish with us, and it's a lot of fun. So come on out and fish with us and enjoy a nice winter day, hopefully. So other than that, that's going to do it for this month. And again, Jeff, just thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, guys.
Yep.
All right. Keep on fishing.
Yep. Until next time, we will talk to you guys then. Follow our socials and find out what we'll be talking about next month.
See ya.